Hello everyone, my name is Brady Haislet and I'm an application engineer here at 3M. Today we're going to go over the application of truck bedliner. Before we get started, you always want to wear the appropriate personal protective equipment for the job. While I was preparing the substrate, I was wearing cut-resistant gloves, safety glasses, as well as a respirator. Once we get into the coating application, I'll be wearing a paint suit, shoe covers, some nitrile gloves, as well as my respirator, which in this case will be a PAPR. This video is intended for professional audiences, and if you have any questions about safety or warranty, the information is in the description below. In this video, we're going to run through the steps involved in applying truck bedliner to a truck bed. First and foremost, with any job, cleaning is of utmost importance. We'll then run through how you abrade that surface, how you do the surface preparation on the truck bed, as well as we'll give you some tips on how you mask off a truck bed. Follow that up with the coating application. Now, as we talk about cleaning, prior to doing any sanding on the truck bed, we did come in and pressure wash out the truck bed and got that as clean as we could. Then after we did our sanding steps, we did come back with a waterborne cleaner followed up with a solvent-borne cleaner, and we will tack it off just prior to the application as well. Regarding substrate preparation, always refer to the coating manufacturer recommendations for the abrasive grade used during the surface preparation. In our case, they recommended a scuff pad, so we used our red Scotch-Brite pad, and in any of the easy to reach areas, we used a rectangular orbital sander, and we followed that up with hand sanding in those hard to reach areas. In the areas where you plan to stop your application with a hard line, one neat trick is you can actually apply your masking tape, your general masking tape, on that hard line that you want to create, but then on top of that, apply a second layer of tape. We actually did that here with green tape to generate that hard line we're going to be following, and then put another layer of yellow tape on top of it, which will only be there as we do our substrate preparation up to that edge. Now that we scuffed right up to that edge with that yellow tape protecting the green tape, which will create that edge, we can actually go ahead and remove the yellow tape, which I'll do now. The next step in this area would be to reapply some tape right on that hardline edge. And the reason we want to do that is because we plan to remove it just after the application of bedliner, so we can soften the hardline edge. Now that we've reapplied the fine line over that same edge, one thing to note is that I plan to remove those after I'm done with the application. So I also folded over a little bit of excess tape and created a dog ear just so I'd remember to pull that after I'm done spraying on the bedliner. When masking the truck bed, the technique may need to change depending on the model of truck that you're masking. In this particular model, we found it was easiest to back mask towards the cab of the truck on the top of the bed, and that gave us a nice place to land the sheeting, as well as face masked over top of that, and we'll get a soft edge by pushing that away after the application. Since we plan to leave the tailgate on for the application, we also needed to mask off the seam between the tailgate and the truck bed, as well as the cables and the jambs of each. Since we didn't plan to remove the truck bed bolts, it was the customer's preference to get those coated as well. We will be leaving those unmasked for the application. As far as holes or other openings on the truck bed, there are a number of methods that can be used to mask those as well. We've showcased here on the left-hand side, we have a back masked hole, which you can do with traditional masking tape. However, we can also use our soft edge foam masking tape, which I've found gives you a quick method of masking off holes and also has that built-in soft edge for the application. There are a few spots where we left unmasked on the truck bed because they have not yet been threaded. They were an optional accessory that the owner of the truck did not opt to get. And any other threaded areas you find on the truck bed will also need to be masked, which we've done by rolling up some masking tape and putting that inside. Now we've got our coating mixed up per the manufacturer recommendations, and as we apply it to this truck bed, I am going to be using the performance spray gun along with the optional HO conversion pack already fit to the gun and the Type HO PPS cup, which allows us to get a pressure assist and deliver some high viscosity materials with an acceptable flow rate. Now with this setup, we do get the full control of a spray gun, so I can dial in that pattern and get appropriate overlap. And I'm going to first target a coverage coat with a fine texture and cover the entirety of this truck bed before I come back over it and readjust those settings for a more coarse texture to do that final texture coat. Now since this is a custom application of Bedliner, we can just match it to what the customer preferences are. However, if you wanted to dial in the spray gun to match an OEM texture, you can do that as well and either do a spot and repair or just make a truck Bedliner application that looks more OEM. With this particular Bedliner, the initial settings we arrived at for a fine texture were 1/2 turn out from fully closed on the fan knob, as well as 1.5 turns out from fully closed on the fluid knob, and 15 psi of air pressure. Now that setting may vary depending on the coating you're using, but that worked well for us on this one. Now we'll show you that fine texture application to get our coverage coat on the Bedliner. Now that we've finished up with our coverage coat at that fine texture setting, we can mix up some more material after this flashes and come back with now a larger tip size. We started with a 1.8, we're jumping up to the 2.0 tip size on the performance spray gun. We're going to leave the HO knob at 1 full turnout, which is wide open. We're going to leave the fan setting alone. However, we'll jump out in turns. We're going to be 3 to 4 turns out from fully closed on the fluid knob, as well as down on air pressure. We were at about 15 psi. We're going to jump down to about 5 psi to really get that material to come out without being broken up into smaller droplets. You guys may have noticed we removed that fine line tape from the hard line edges right after we did our coarse texture application. We removed the rest of the masking after we gave it enough dry time. That's all we have for today, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Please feel free to comment, share, or subscribe if you like this content. And if you want to see more like it, we have a link for the Collision Repair Academy in the description below. See you guys next time.